The abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II at the end of World War I and creation of the chaotic Weimar government was just one domino in the game of dominoes in post-World War I Germany, which led to the angry mustache model and the Nazis to control Germany, as well as kicking off World War II with the invasion of Poland. But what if, in an alternate timeline, Germany didn't become the Weimar Republic and remained a monarchist state after the end of World War I? You see, during the second half of the Great War, Germany was pretty much a monarchy in name only, as the Kaiser had become a figurehead and the state was essentially a military dictatorship. So from 1916 to 1918, Wilhelm was referred to as the Shadow Kaiser, as he had no real control over pretty much anything. But this didn't stop the Entente from pinning everything Germany did on the Kaiser, and at the war's end, Woodrow Resegregation Wilson had even stated that the monarchy needed to be overthrown in order to end the war. At one point, the British even threatened to hang the Kaiser after the war, as they blamed him for the entire Great War, which shows how much they really believed their own propaganda. Anyway, Wilhelm II abdicated and went into exile in Holland after the Kaiserliche Marine Mutiny. The Dutch government refused extradition of the Kaiser to Britain for execution or trial, because, well, why should they? Anyway, this brings me to Wilhelm III, the popular son of Wilhelm II. Wilhelm III had been in command of the German Fifth Army and the Army Group German Crown Prince during World War I at the Battle of Verdun. He had given a foreign interview in 1914 where he said in English exactly how he felt about the war and Germany's part in it, being that it was totally unnecessary and that Germany was responding like every other European power. He abdicated his claim to the throne as a result of the German Revolution, and with his father he fled to Holland. However, Wilhelm III was allowed to return to Germany in 1923 if he promised not to engage in politics, which is a promise that he broke essentially immediately after returning. Wilhelm III joined Der Stahlhelm, which merged in 1931 into the Habsburg Front, a right-wing organization of those opposed to the Democratic Republic, and Wilhelm III was against democracy because he preferred monarchy, because, well, obviously he was a monarch. He then considered running for the German presidency in 1932 against Paul von Hindenburg, but his father said no, and Wilhelm III withdrew his candidacy. But after the murder of his friend and former German Chancellor Kurt von Schindler and the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, Wilhelm officially withdrew from all political activities. However, he heavily disliked Hitler due to the political murders and the fact that Hitler was insane, and that he didn't want to reestablish the monarchy, of course. During World War II, Wilhelm III was approached by those in the military and diplomatic service who wanted to kill the angry mustache model, but Wilhelm stayed out of it. But after the assassination attempt of Hitler on July 20th, 1944, Hitler had Wilhelm placed under supervision by the Gestapo, and in 1945, Wilhelm III was captured by Moroccan troops, and the French wanted to put him on trial as a World War I war criminal because of his ancestry. Wilhelm was then placed under house arrest and would die there in 1951. I give all of this context so you have at least some idea of what Wilhelm III's rule might be like had he not abdicated like his father. The first condition for the Entente to even accept Wilhelm III on the throne would be as if he promised to bring about democratic reforms in Germany, which he wouldn't follow through with, but it satisfies the racist president. The British are also satisfied that Wilhelm II is no longer on the throne, so now that Kaiser Wilhelm III is in charge of interwar Germany, what's going to happen? The first thing that Wilhelm III is going to have to deal with is the mass interwar chaos and instability which plagued the actual Weimar government. With the Imperial German army becoming severely limited in size, many of these World War I veterans had formed and joined paramilitary organizations. Much like the actual Weimar government, Wilhelm would rely on these paramilitaries to maintain public order for a while. Unlike the Weimar government, however, Wilhelm wouldn't rely on paramilitaries to keep each other in check. For example, there were many coup attempts in Germany during the early interwar years, and the Weimar Republic relied on right-wing paramilitaries to counter left-wing paramilitaries, and similarly would rely on left-wing paramilitaries to counter right-wing paramilitaries. Needless to say, there's a lot of radical ideologies roaming about Germany at this time. One key difference, however, is that the monarchy is in place, and therefore a lot of the more moderate paramilitaries are loyal to the government and don't further radicalize like they did in our timeline. Since things in Germany are a little less chaotic, monarchist Germany is more in a position to look at what's going on in Eastern Europe, but is also on very thin ice with former Entente powers as there's a Kaiser in place. So during the Silesia uprisings, Germany still suppresses Polish rebels like in our timeline, but the League of Nations will probably enforce not just a ceasefire, but do a little punishing of Germany along the way. And during the Polish-Soviet War, Germany stays neutral but remains in a defensive posture in case of a Soviet breakthrough, and even sells some arms to Poland to try to get out from under the foot of the League of Nations. But one place which Germany will not stay neutral in is the Baltic states. Starting with Lithuania, Germany in our timeline had around 10,000 troops to defeat the Soviets, but then came the Lithuanian-Bermotian War where Lithuania defeated German paramilitaries in the country. In this alternate timeline, Germany supplies the paramilitaries even more, and it's unknown if they will control Lithuania, but if that did happen, then Germany supports their puppet government against the Poles in the Polish-Lithuanian War. Regarding Estonia and Latvia, it's a somewhat similar deal. German paramilitaries heavily aided in countries achieving independence, but they wanted to have German rule and were then sent back to Germany in our timeline after defeating the Soviets. In this alternate timeline, if Germany does indeed gain puppet states in the Baltic states, then the League of Nations would heavily oppose Germany's vassal states. These puppets would be exhausted and not very happy with the idea of being under German rule, but would still likely see it as preferable to Soviet rule because, Bolsheviks. Germany's relationship with the United States due to all of this would be very tense. I bring the US up particularly due to the DOS plan where the US provided some economic support to Germany because of their war debt. In this alternate timeline, American economic support would probably be used as leverage over Germany to withdraw from Eastern Europe, and the Kaiser would comply as Germany is broke and the monarchy is holding on through mostly paramilitary control. But will the monarchy last past the 1920s? Well, it depends on how the German public reacts to the Great Depression. The Kaiser probably stays in power, but his regime would show its legitimacy by putting down any radical uprisings by Bolsheviks, fascists, proto-Nazis, and anarchists. The monarchy would also likely ally with Mussolini's Italy to try to rebuild a relationship with Britain to be hard on communism, but also to try not to fall to fascism at the same time. So Kaiser Wilhelm III is in a pretty tough spot, politically speaking. To sum everything up, Germany's monarchy is barely surviving, but has its victories and spitting in the faces of the League of Nations in Eastern Europe during the 1920s, as many in Germany still view France as the enemy. However, whatever changes that occur in the USSR due to German victories in the Baltics will profoundly impact what happens to Germany next, be it further radicalization or maybe people have more support in the monarchy in standing up to the Bolsheviks, but you never know. This is of course just one possible scenario for if the German monarchy remained after World War I. What do you think would have happened? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.